Okay, and here we go. Welcome to 802 Scoop, live from the Inside Scoop studio right here on North Main Street in Barrie. Tonight, a special edition of Barrie Beat for our first school board candidate, Sarah Helman. She's joining me here in the studio, and she's going to tell us why she's running. And we'll get into some questions. And please, by all means, if you have questions for Sarah, ask them. And we'll try to answer as many as we can while we're live. And what we can't, Sarah can always go back and check out later and get those answered for you. So without further ado, welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So the big question that always comes first is, why are you running?
Well, this is my third year on the ballot for school board, and my reason really hasn't changed. I have a passion for education. I worked in education for 9 years. That was the start of my adult life after college, and I got an undergrad degree in a bachelor's of music education, and started teaching in Bethel, Vermont, at Whitcomb Junior Senior High School and Bethel Elementary School, teaching instrumental music. And then I spent the next 6 years at Barrie City Elementary and Middle School, teaching instrumental music to the middle school kids, which I absolutely loved. And I ended up getting out of education, but I have continued to work in sort of the human services fields and different aspects. About 7.5 years of community mental health, and now the last almost 3 years have been in housing. So, I service is in my blood. It's in my nature. I like to help as much as I can, and I feel like this is a really good way for me to be able to serve the community. It's a subject matter that I feel very well versed in. I ended up getting my Master's of Education finished the course in 2013, which was a huge accomplishment, and was able to do it while teaching full time. So I have a lot of experience. I've just been immersed in the education world since, growing up. My parents were both teachers, and many of my extended family are teachers as well. So it's just kind of the shop talk you hear at the house as a kid, and high school and growing up, and then being employed in the education field. So I really want to have an impact on that in the community, and I'm very passionate about it. So it's a very long-winded answer to your question, but
no, I mean it's not long-winded, because that's the answer. Those are your reasons, and I have to assume that the job you hold now in housing could bring some critical information to the school and the school board at this time, knowing that homelessness and housing is an issue across the board, and you certainly see it in the schools with the students as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a housing crisis right now across the state. It's not just Barrie, it's not just Central Vermont, it's across the state. And, the thing is, there are units out there, but they're, specifically designated for certain populations, and those are definitely vulnerable populations. And, getting people into housing is, it's a process. But, I work with the Section 8 voucher program specifically, so, not in the business necessarily of housing people, but allowing them to have affordable housing, which is a big barrier for a lot of people, especially people that are homeless and don't have a lot of income, or don't have, just are in hard times. A lot of people are in hard times. Even people that are employed are in hard times right now. So,
for sure. Now, we know that the Scott administration is bringing all kinds of things forward and wanting to make all kinds of changes in figuring out formulas and how the districts are going to be set up and how many districts there may be compared to what we have now, and just really looking at how we can still give a good education while giving the taxpayers who are feeling as though they are drowning a little bit of relief. Any thoughts on what has been coming down the pike?
I haven't read into all of it, but I've seen the proposal of the 5 districts for the state, and I personally don't think it's going to happen because I think there's going to be so much pushback. But at the same time, I think it's a great conversation to have, and I'm not really on any particular side. I got my undergrad in West Virginia, and I think every other state in the country does education differently than Vermont. We're an outlier for sure with the local control. In West Virginia, all the school districts are by county. So there's one superintendent for, could be upwards of 6, 7 schools. Some of the smaller counties may be less, some of the larger counties maybe more. But they typically have a few elementary schools sprinkled around the county, and then one middle school, one high school in the county seat. So they they bus them. Some kids are on the bus for a while, but not for elementary school because those are closer. But I think it's certainly a conversation, and like I said, Vermont has had so much local control for so long. I don't know if it could happen without a big sort of uprise about it. And I certainly can appreciate wanting that local control, having more say in your kids' education, having it be a little more personal versus a larger district where some kids tend to get lost. I mean, like I said, I could go either way, and I just think it would be a really fun conversation to have.
In conversations that sound like they're going to continue to happen for quite some time now until things start.
And I would really hope that Vermont could look at some of the other states that are our size. New Hampshire's a little bit bigger than us, but they are right next door. They do their education system differently, larger districts. I'm not as familiar with New Hampshire's system, but looking at some of the places around the state that would match kind of our situation would be good information to have, right? How do you do it? How do you manage this? How do you manage that? How do you fill your school board seats? How does that all work? And just trying to, I think it would be good for the public to hear that side of it and how it works in other places. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm excited for the conversation.
And we know that local schools or all schools have their troubles. They all have challenges that they're facing. What do you feel in this district, the BUUSD district? what do you feel is one of the biggest challenges that they're facing right now?
Well, I think there's a couple of answers to that. For a long time, it's been behaviors and particularly in the city, and that's just the demographic of that particular school, and it's kind of migrating into the other schools as well. But being able to deal with the discipline issues that we have and educate students. And I think there are some that would say that the students that are more advanced aren't getting what they need because they're being held back by other things that are happening in the classroom. Whether that's really true or not, could be. I think the other issue we have is a cohesive school board. I know that a lot of people are unhappy with that, and I think being able to work with the other side that maybe doesn't agree with you, but finding some common ground where we do agree, and listening and finding that common territory. We're not going to get everything we want. It's not all going to be one-sided, but being able to listen and hear where people are coming from. And that goes both ways, So, those are the two larger things. One's more student-facing, the other's not. But it all kind of comes together and makes the school district as it is.
We often hear also about transparency and communication among the board members and the community members and parents. And what is your thought about the 2-minute rule?
I understand why you might do that, but I don't think that it's always necessary. I think, the school board is elected by the voters, and they're supposed to be the voice of the voters. And for the school board to not want to hear from the voters in a public meeting is kind of sad. I think, if you have a lot of people there and there's a particular topic that, a lot of people want to speak to, limiting to a couple minutes might make sense. But I think on the regular, when there's only, a handful of people in the room or online, allowing them to get their thoughts out, and hoping that people are going to be, as brief as they can and to get the point across that they want. So, yeah, I get it, but I also would want to hear from the voters. I would want to hear from the community what their thoughts are, and hopefully, they're solution-based thoughts.
Yeah.
So.
And we're still hearing a lot. Just this week, I've seen it in several of the chat pages where there seems to be a significant issue with bullying and the enforcement of the rules behind bullying and how things are being dealt with, not on just a board level, but a school level as a whole. How do you see where the board can maybe help the administration kind of change how things are being done right now?
This is something that I'm also very passionate about. I was bullied in school, so I know what that feels like. And I feel like this kind of goes back to the behavior issue, right? It's being able to deal with the kids that are causing the problems and disrupting the classroom, and then, are doing other things outside of the classroom, bullying other kids. And I think there's been a couple of conversations about like an ad hoc committee to kind of look at what those policies are on discipline and behaviors and bullying. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, first of all, to serve on that committee. but second to, I went and looked at all of the handbooks for each of the schools and pulled out what their procedures and rules are around behavior and discipline and how that all works, in hopes of being, comparing them, and are we doing the same thing across the board? Age appropriate, of course, but do the policies align with those procedures, and are those procedures being followed? I don't think there's any need to have names or any certain particular situations outlined or highlighted in any of those conversations, but solely data. We've had this many incidents in this month. I don't need to know what they are. If you want to label them with a level of severity, that's fine. But I don't want to know who. I don't want to know what. I just want to know what the data is, so that we can address those things. Nobody wants to out anybody or their private information, students, families, whatever. But we clearly have an issue that needs to be addressed. And this is the one thing that hasn't been tried. It's been talked about, and it's been shot down every time. So I'd love to see that conversation happen.
I think a lot of people would like to see that conversation happen.
Not just the board members, though, including the community.
Exactly.
Bringing in community members that want to be at the table for that conversation, and contribute to that. Solution focused, right? Not complaining all the like this is bad and this is bad and this is bad. We know that. What's the solution for that? And how do we fix it?
And work across the board with everybody involved, not the people that are against,
Right.
maybe the punishments and
Find the common ground.
Right, find something where you can meet in the middle and really start to help people. I don't know about you, but maybe you're too young, but when I was in school, we used to have assemblies about this kind of stuff all the time, and I always thought, if you were the bully in a room of an entire school, 300 people, and you're even if there's 5 bullies in that room, and you're seeing that the other 300 people in the school actually think that that's not okay, that alone is
It's an indirect peer pressure.
It is. And so I don't know if that's something that the board can, implement the policy that you have a certain amount of assemblies per year where, you discuss these things with your students as a whole and do something so that the administration, the faculty, the school, everybody is involved, and to get these conversations really on the table.
I mean, I would hope that everybody wants that. The board isn't really responsible for the day-to-day runnings of the schools. They're more of the larger, panned out view, policies and things like that. But it's certainly something they could suggest. There are tons of anti-bullying assembly type programs, I'm sure, out there that are, intended to be lighter but get the point across. So it's not a lecture, it's not a, which I think some of those assemblies maybe used to be back in the day. I do know what you're talking about. But you're right, I think, for somebody who's treating somebody poorly, for whatever reason, to sit in a room full of people and hear that's not okay, without somebody saying to you directly, and calling you out in front of the room of people, you might get that message and think about that. You would hope.
Think about what you're doing.
Yeah. The other issue with bullying is sometimes it's really hard to prove. Having been a teacher, when somebody says to you, Johnny's doing this to me all the time, and you go to Johnny and say, well, I'm hearing this and they outright deny it. And it's very hard to prove, and kids are sneaky. You know, we were all children at one time. I think
Right.
we were all we all
we were
snuck
all
around
sneaky.
in some
Right.
capacity.
Right.
You know, I would sneak and get like treats from the kitchen as a
Right.
kid.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. Can I have a piece of candy? And no, but you sneak it anyway or something, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's
That's in
a little more
in
benign.
yeah.
But
Every little kid, though, I think experience or experiments with how far can I push
what can
it?
I get away with?
And it's what we decide that we're going to allow, and that's where we need to find a common ground, really.
Right.
And so, also, we know the big question is, what about all the spending? What about all the money that we've had over the last few years and the money coming in? It seems as though test scores and things are declining as far as the kids' education goes. But, more and more money's pouring in, but we're getting less out.
Yeah, where's the return on investment?
Yeah, but how do you get that? How do we get to that point where there is a return on investment?
It's very hard to teach kids when there are a lot of disciplinary issues that a teacher has to deal with. So that's kind of first and foremost. I've gone back and forth about, homogenous classes. The current best practice is mixing kids up. You've got some of the smarter kids, some of the middle, and some of the bottom. And that's not to label kids. It's just to meet them where they are. You hear the phrase a lot, meet them where they're at, which ends in a preposition. Anyway. But that's the common phrase, right? So if, I think I talked about this last year. The terms on the tip of my tongue, performance-based grading, right? So the idea of that and the intention of that is to, take a kid who, you do a pretest. Okay, here's what I know this, and so the next level would be to this, and if you have kids that start here, some might start here, some might start here, and as long as they're all going in the upward direction, it's not, instead of, this is the bar and I have a kid here, so they don't need to do anything because they're already above it.
Right.
What good is that kid getting out of that classroom time? And it's really difficult. It's not easy. It's a really difficult thing to keep track of. It's much, much easier when you have kids that are invested in their education, which I don't think we really have on the whole. I know that Berrytown was doing a really awesome job with that in their middle school. When I was teaching anyway, I heard a lot of really cool stories of kids doing their own parent-teacher conference and saying, this is what I've been learning, this is what I'm working on, and I thought that was a really great tool, or a really cool thing to see when kids are invested. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of planning to implement something like that. So, providing teachers with the appropriate professional development and tools to be able to do something like that is it's an investment for sure.
And it's a fine line, because we are always trying to be so critical and careful of what we say and how we say it. And really, when it comes to this, though, I don't think it's a bad thing to say that we're looking for a child to excel. No matter your level, you always want to get a little bit above that level. And it's okay to ask that of anybody, no matter where you're at. So
even if you come in down here, as long as, you might not make it to that bar, but as long as you're making progress
towards it,
and that's what we're looking for. I mean, you want them to meet the bar. Is every kid going to meet the bar? Maybe not.
And we all say, a big phrase that people use all the time is don't look behind, look ahead, look for the future, forget yesterday, let's move to today. And so why can't we think of this in the same terms? It's not putting anyone down, it's not putting anyone at a different level. It's just we're expecting the same from everyone.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say forget the past. I would say be informed by the past. Like we are informed by history, and knowing where a kid's background and where they've come from can be helpful, and helping them grow. I think about stories like the movie The Blind Side, where you had a kid who couldn't take a test to save his life, and in order for him to be able to play football, the teachers were able to read the questions to him, and he could explain what the answers are, but he couldn't put that on paper. I think there are some alternative ways to meet kids where they're at, for them to show that they are intelligent and that they do know this stuff.
Right. And while asking a little bit more from them, instead of teaching them that it's okay to accept the bare minimum.
I have such a hard time with like, oh, we're not meeting, our test scores are down, because I know that standardized testing is not a great metric. It's really not. I sat and proxied tests for the special ed students that needed, a quieter space or needed more time, or we would read the math questions to them because we didn't want the reading of the math questions to get in the way of the math, knowing the math and completing the math. So, there are ways to get kids to succeed. You just have to put the time and effort and really be invested in them. And it's a lot. It takes a lot of time. It's not just one blanket lesson plan for everybody.
Do you think that we've been overspending and underperforming?
So this is such a hot button topic, and my stance on this, I guess, would be that in this role, I would be representing the voters, with the best interest of the students at the forefront. Are we spending the money we have appropriately? I don't really know. I can't really answer that. I think in some cases, probably not. In other cases, yeah, I think we are. I was actually having this conversation with my uncle last weekend, who lives in southern New Hampshire and used to teach shop, woodworking and, working with your hands. And figuring out a way to, so what ends up happening is, you're given a budget, and this was the case with me as a music teacher. This is your budget for the year. You have $5,000 to spend on everything you need for your program, and I'm just making up a number. And so you carefully keep track of that. Okay, I need this much for instrument repair, and I need this much for buses for just to get us down to the parade. I need, you work all that out and you figure that out, and then you get to the, June, you're like, ooh, I have like $300 left. Like, what should I spend it on? Because the feeling is if you don't spend it, you'll lose it.
Right, you won't get it again next year.
Right, so I wish there was a way to sort of disincentivize that and have something where you could potentially roll that over to the next year. Maybe your budget's a little bit smaller, but you've got that rollover that would bring you up to where you need to be. And honestly, if you can do it with less in one year, why not try it with a little less? But also being able to say, I really need, and when I was teaching, I bought new band jackets. Like, I want to say there was probably 200 band jackets that we purchased. I'm maybe misremembering that, and I had to get special permission for it, but the old band jackets were really outdated and they were really old. They'd been there since the school had opened in 97, I think. 96 or 97, one or the other. and that was a large expense that we, used special funds for. It wasn't part of the band budget, but being able to assess things like that might be outside of what their initial budget is, and if they have money in their budget, to use that first. And if so long as you're spending appropriately, we're not just buying stuff to buy stuff. Like, this has an educational purpose. Then why couldn't we find, monies in places that doesn't need it to be able to use it somewhere else?
And that's when the line by line,
Right.
going through the budget, line by line,
Right.
really figuring
and honestly,
that out
the school board
counts.
hasn't done that, I don't think. I don't think they've actually done that. I know some of them have, but I don't think they've all done that. And yeah, it's tedious, and it takes a lot of time, and there's thousands and thousands of lines of items on there. But if you take it in chunks and just go through it, and you can find a lot of things that we don't need to put money there. And so Berry City passed the budget all 4 times last year. So I recognize that as an elected official, my job would be to represent the voters. And I think, to represent the voters and to give what I think is in the best interest of the students, give my opinions, and find a way to, to manage money better. I wish I could just take a magic wand and
make it all
fix
better.
it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But I think there's a lot of things that we have to kind of get out of the way to be able to get our test scores where they should be. I know we have some really intelligent kids in that school, and I know that there are some kids that could really benefit from being in a classroom where there's not all those distractions.
So, if elected, what is the one thing that you have kind of in your mind, and maybe it's not even one thing, maybe it's a few things, but if elected, what is the most important thing to you that you think that you really want to work on and make an attempt at making some changes, or just encouraging and strengthening, not necessarily change, but just strengthening?
Yeah, I think, as a newly elected school board member, I probably wouldn't, go in guns a-blazing, but you kind of listen and kind of take it in, and then start, I've been to school board meetings, it's not secret or anything, but I think I would want to focus on the education of our students. I don't hear that coming up as often as I would like to in the school board meetings. I want to be able to highlight the things that our students are doing well at, and not just complain about things that aren't going well. I want to be able to find ways. I think probably the one thing that I would really like to be a part of is a committee to look at the behavior policies and procedures that are in place, and are they being followed? Are they being addressed appropriately, age appropriate? And how can we have a better culture in our schools so that kids can learn? Because ultimately that's what a school is for. We're a business, but we're in the business of educating kids. And that's kind of how I feel about it. We have to get some of these other things taken care of so that we can move forward with educating kids, all while educating kids.
Right.
So, focusing in on reading, writing, math, the basics, history, Education is so different today than it was even 20 years ago. And I know that's so cliche to say, but I honestly, I can't imagine growing up today with social media. It's terrifying to me because the bullying, a lot of that
Right.
happens online
Right.
and on social media. And I can't, just blows I just feel so bad for these kids
Right.
like that are getting, experiencing that. Because even adults do it and hurt people.
Yeah.
So as a kid, when you don't have the range of emotion and the ability to manage those emotions, it's even harder.
Right. We do have a question. This question comes from Judy. How can you help eliminate the negativity with some of the members of the school board? That could be why the budget gets voted down, is meetings are always about money and not actually the kids. Do you think there's any way that you might be able to help foster a better environment?
Well, I mean, I would like to think that we could just kumbaya it, but
No.
not gonna happen.
This will not happen.
I honestly, I think trying to just help folks realize and recognize that we all want the same thing. We all want a good school district. We all want, the Barrie School District to be a place where parents want to come live so their kids can go to that school. I think we can get there. I know we all have different ideas, and I know we all have different, we're all coming from different backgrounds and places and experiences, and but really it's about finding the common ground. Okay, you don't like that, and you don't like that, but we like this. This is something we like together. How can we build on that? And it's such an interesting dynamic, because it's all done out in the open. There's no way to like close the door and be like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," and get it out.
Hash it all out.
Right. There's no way to just kind of, this is not, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but when you have two little boys that are fighting and they just duke it out and then they're good.
Right.
Like, not that I want people to fist fight each other. That's not what I'm saying.
Right, that's not what you mean.
But
yeah.
the idea of it is, just get it out and not have to do it in public would be a lot nicer. But sometimes you say things, or you're thinking things about the other person, and they're thinking that you're not saying what and
you really want to say.
You misunderstand people, and you misinterpret, or things are being miscommunicated because of the setting we're in. And I chair a public board, and it's hard to can't say things that you might be thinking because it's going to get interpreted a certain way.
Right.
But I really think that if people would have a decent, honest conversation, we would find a lot more common ground.
And this person also says, need to stop the us and them. It's about the kids, no matter where they live. And which is true, because BUUSD is not the Barrie district, which we hear often. That includes the career center and kids, right? No, that's right. That's
Career
separated
Center is
now.
its own
But
school district.
For the high school, it also includes Washington and Orange. It's not just Barrie City and Barrytown kids. There's kids from other,
I thought Washington and Orange had their own school district with Williamstown.
They have choice to come here, I thought.
They did. I don't know if that's still the case.
Oh, they
I
did?
could be wrong. I'd have to look into it. I don't know for certain.
I thought that they still did.
It's possible.
But either way,
It's
I mean,
possible.
it's not just the Barrie district, and it's not just Barrytown or Barrie City, and we should be acting as a whole.
You also
and
get
not
kids from St.
just-
Monica's that
Yeah.
haven't gone to either of those schools and then go to Spalding.
And then go to Spalding.
We're the Barrie Unified Union School District.
And so to be unified would be
unified.
great.
I think that was intentional, that name. Doesn't really roll off your tongue well when you're saying BUUSD, but It's unified, Barry unified. We are Barry City, Barry Town, Graniteville, Websterville, East Barry,
Yeah.
and all the little villages around coming together. And we need to be adults, and we need to be leaders, and we need to show kids how this works, and get along and work together. You don't have to like people to work together.
No, absolutely not.
No, we
And
don't.
you should-
Nobody's
and you
asking
really
you to be
shouldn't.
best friends.
Right, you don't
but
have to be friends to work
the
together.
the nitpicky sort of thing back and forth, and I'm not trying to call anybody out. That's not my intention at all, because it comes from both sides. It comes from all directions. We just need a clean slate. Start over. Forget what's happened in the past. Not completely, but any pettiness that's happened in the past. Start with a fresh slate. This is
Right,
how we
here's
wanna
the
move
board and
forward.
let's move forward. Yeah.
This is our common goal. We're all here for students. We're in the business. We're a business. We're in the business of educating children.
Right. So, any last words or last pitch for yourself?
I've sort of said a lot, haven't I? I really want this. I have lived in Barry my entire life, other than the 4 years I spent in college. And really, that wasn't my residence. So I've been a resident of Barry, Barry Town for my childhood, and then I rented in Barry City for a while when I moved to teaching there. And now I'm a homeowner in Barry City. So this community is near and dear to my heart, and I really care about it, and I really care about the schools. I was a student at Barry Town. I taught at Barry City. I was a student at Spalding. And I know the potential of those schools, and I want to see them thrive. I'm not going to say anything disparaging about my opponent. However, he hasn't lived in our community for very long, is my understanding. And I would really like the opportunity to be able to represent Barry City on the school board, and am open to hearing any thoughts and questions, comments that you might have about education in Barry. But teaching and educating children is my focus.
And how do people contact you?
Well, I have a Facebook page, Sarah for Barry. Oh wait, no, hold on. I should know this. This is embarrassing. Sarah for School Board. I couldn't remember if my last name was there or not. Sarah for School Board is my Facebook page. Hopefully it's still working. Meta keeps threatening to shut it down.
It's still working.
But you can message me there. You can send me a through Messenger, or post something there.
Okay.
I'm terrible at social media. It's not my forte, but
How about an email address? Is there something?
I would, yes. I don't, yep, hold on. My official, let's see, Helman, the number 4, schoolboard @gmail.com. Yeah. And that just gets forwarded to my personal account so I don't miss things.
Right, okay. So that's probably better than the social media.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And we put those in the comments, and that way if people want to reach out to you.
I'd be willing to give my
that they
phone
can.
number too if you want to put that in there.
That's up to you.
802-249-8301. If you want to have a conversation, I'm open to that.
8301.
Yep. Don't spam me or anything like that. This is trust here.
Right.
This is
I
some
know.
serious
I
trust.
do it too. My phone number's out there all over the place now because of this, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Sometimes I think, and I do. Today I kept getting text messages from Bernie Sanders. Hey,
I
this
got a
is
text
Bernie.
message today from a Manhattan
Good gracious.
area code and was like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's up?" I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know you." Delete. You may have to leave a message if you call because I tend to screen calls, and if I don't know your number, then. But leave a call and I'll definitely call you back, or leave
All
a
right.
message and I'll definitely call you back.
All right. Those are in there. Um,
I want to be accessible to the community as well. So that's how, I mean, just be mindful I have a full-time job.
right. Bridge the gap.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming. And is there anything else that you want to add, or do you think that we've pretty much covered it? Or I don't want to leave without you feeling as though you were able to get everything across that you would like to get across.
No, I think that about covers it. You know, this is something I'm just really passionate about, and I'd really like to do this. So I need your help. I need the community's help to do this. I need your votes. So.
And we need everyone to either participate by absentee ballot or at the polls on March 4th in Berry City. It's at the auditorium from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Be aware, it's going to look a little bit different at the Odd. So I believe it's not going to be on the main floor. It's going to be downstairs. It's still handicap accessible. The reason for that is the basketball schedule.
Yeah.
It's just easier to not have to be there at 11 o'clock at night the night before to set up.
Right, to set everything up.
So that way the basketball schedule can continue and we can still have our voting place.
So,
So
Berry
don't be
City,
deterred by that, I guess is my point.
That's right. So in Berry City at the auditorium, 7 to 7. Berry Town at the elementary school, also 7 to 7. And we will continue to do these interviews. I think we have one tomorrow as well. And we'll continue to do those between now and March 4th to get you as much information as we possibly can.
Pray for good weather on the 4th.
Yes.
Because if I'm going to stand out there at the polls,
that would be
I'd
great.
love to not be freezing.
Yeah, me too.
Last
me
couple
too.
of years, it's been very cold.
Yes, I agree with you. So we'll look forward to that. We'll hope. And again, thanks for joining me. Good luck. And I'm sure that I'll see you up at the polls. On
Yeah,
the
thanks
4th.
for having me.
I
This
always
has been
try
great.
to stop up there and who knows? You'll never know what 802 Scoop will show up and decide to feed the people, you know? So.